Frollo is the app that several thousand single parents say has been life-changing for them in the most profound way. If you're a single parent and want to connect with other single parents and open yourself up to an amazing support network and new experiences, then the Frollo app is the one for you. The Frollo app has two modes: community mode for meetups and holidays, guidance and support, chats, and discovery to make it easy to find like-minded local single parents near you. Dating mode is a mindful, safe, and respectful dating offering where everybody is there to date another single parent. All users on Frollo are verified, putting our user safety first always. The Frollo app is free to download and use, with the option to upgrade to premium for access to lots of additional premium features for an elevated experience, which makes it easier than ever to access the incredible connections and experiences you're looking for. To download Frollo, search for Frollo, Frollo, on the App or Google Play Store, or go to www.frollo.com for more info. We can't wait to see you on the app soon.
You're listening to the second episode of the Frollo podcast. I'm Zoe, the founder of Frollo, a social networking app and community for single parents that's launching soon. On the Frollo podcast series, I will be talking to single parents, or Frollos, about their stories and experiences. I will also be chatting to a range of experts who will be able to share valuable guidance related to single parent life. Today, I am joined by solo mother by choice, Genevieve Roberts. Genevieve has a daughter, Astrid, who's 2 and is also 37 weeks pregnant with her second sperm donor baby. Genevieve has just written a book called Going Solo, My Choice to Become a Single Mother Using a Donor, which came out last week and is published by Piatticus. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, Piatticus. So Genevieve, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Talk to us, to talk to me and to tell your story to the Frollo community. So there are quite a few single mothers by choice in the Frollo community, and also a lot of people who are on that journey as well. So I know it will be really interesting to them and to lots of other people who might be considering this as an option to hear your story and how you came to the decision to do this. So I was just saying to you, I got your book in the post yesterday from Amazon. I just got back from holiday, so I've only had less than 24 hours to delve into it, but I'm really enjoying it so far.
Oh, I'm so pleased.
Yeah, it's great. It's a real page turner, and I love your honesty and your, there's a lot that I relate to in the book. You spoke about being in school and chatting with your friends and saying, oh, when I'm this, everyone talking about when I'm this age, I'm going to get married. When I'm this age, I'm going to have a baby. As if, it's just our decision, kind of how we kind of these big significant life events happen and when they take place. And obviously, as we realise, that's not how life works out for us.
Yeah, it certainly hadn't crossed my mind at that stage that that life wasn't quite such a predictable track. And I think that's probably really the biggest thing about the book, whether it's you've become a solo mum or not. I think it's just a story about how when life doesn't follow the tracks that maybe you'd expected, that's when some of the most beautiful and best moments come along. That can be for me, that's having Astrid and being so lucky to have my daughter and my son who's on his way. For other people, that could be something totally different. But I think the minute your life deviates from what you'd expected, that's perhaps allows some extra magic to come in.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I love the way you've put that because, well, I guess in my own experience, it's when my relationship broke down, you know, there was such heartbreak over the family that I dreamed of and desperately wanted. But now it's given me an opportunity. It opened up a vision for Frollo and creating this community. So it's like sometimes things have to happen the way they're forced to, you know, they're forced to happen in a certain way in order to show you another kind of route or way, or to help you become the person that you're supposed to be. And so in terms of having those conversations with your friends in school and to where you are now, what has that journey looked like, or how did you come to be at this point?
Well, I'm really lucky that those friends in school are still very close friends and remember having that conversation with them. So it's lovely that there's some things that do stay with you. I guess I was very much a serial monogamist. I was always in a relationship through my teenage years and into my 20s. And I love relationships. They're great. Then I got together straight after my kind of longest, most long-term boyfriend. I think, I guess it's fair to say, very much on the rebound, did get together with someone who I ended up marrying and divorcing very, very quickly. I think that really threw my sense of judgment, and it was a mistake that I would never have wanted to have made. And I think after that, I was very, very cautious indeed about relationships. So all of a sudden, I was in my 30s. I didn't feel an especial rush to have children at that stage. There were lots of other things in my life that were very fulfilling. Most of my friends around me hadn't started having children quite then. And then fast forward a few years from that, and I really wanted to find out my fertility levels. I'd never forgotten those conversations and this just expectation. I'd just taken it so for granted that I would get the chance to have children. And so I went at 37 to find out my fertility levels, expecting them to be sky high, perhaps naively, but I'd had a miscarriage a couple of years earlier with a partner. And so, thought that my worry was actually carrying a child rather than getting pregnant. So I was pretty devastated when they told me that my fertility levels were so low that I should, if I wanted to have a child, it was something I needed to act on sooner rather than later, or come to terms with the idea that may not happen for me.
And for you, like, did that immediately make you think, okay, I need to do something about this now? Or was it a gradual process?
It was maybe several months from having that to actually trying to get pregnant. So it was quite sudden. It wasn't I'll sit on this for a year and work out what I'm going to do. It absolutely brought it front of mind for me. And as I say, relationships were really important to me, and I'd never questioned how I was going to have children. I kind of thought it was a deliberate consequence of being in a relationship. Yeah. But all of a sudden, it was that idea that I might not be able to have children. And I told myself, and whoever knows how much, I told myself as long as I could try to have children, if it wasn't going to happen to me, that was easier to come to terms with than not trying at all. And it suddenly felt less important to have everything kind of right at I felt like I could meet someone further down the line. There was no time limit on that. The time limit was on becoming a parent. And I just had this real strong feeling that if I came to the end of my life, the biggest regret I would ever have would be not trying to become a parent. Wow. So at that point, it felt it was almost simpler to go ahead with it than not to, because it would have been, I found it so very hard to come to terms with the idea that I wasn't even going to try becoming a parent.
Yeah. But at the same time, it just must take such a huge amount of determination to kind of, cross the line in terms of making that decision, because it's obviously such a huge decision, life-changing in so many ways. And, even deciding to have a child when you're in a relationship, I think, is such a huge thing. It's like, it's a scary thing for a lot of people to go, okay, going from just me to being completely responsible for another human being for the rest of your life. It's huge.
I did feel this sudden weight of responsibility, but it was a really welcome weight of responsibility. It was something I'd longed for so long. I was also so lucky in terms of the support I received from people around me. I was very open right from the start. A lot of people, if you're in a couple and you're having fertility treatment, think you're far less likely to be open about it. Often just a couple keep that together. It's something that they're just working on. Whereas obviously being on my own, I had a different support network. And that meant that even before I decided to do this, I spoke to people, asked them their views, what they thought. And I think people knew how much I wanted to become a parent and how important it was. I suspect a few of them were quite relieved that I was finally getting on, because I think they were probably aware that fertility doesn't last forever. My mum said to me, do I realise that she'd love me just as much if I didn't have children? I think she wanted to just make sure it wasn't something that was a kind of social pressure.
Sure.
But again, she was incredibly supportive. And I was so buoyed up by that support that I received, and both Astrid and I continue to receive. So we're really fortunate.
Yeah. And I would imagine that for anybody, just knowing what it's like to be a mother and also to be a single mother, but then in my situation, obviously I co-parent, so I have it's either all me or then suddenly, like I just came back from a holiday with my son Billy 2 days ago, and we had a week of like intense but lovely, amazing time together. And then it was the handover to his dad in the airport.
That must be very hard.
Yeah, and he's gone for the week, and the kind of contrast of that is really hard to deal with. And yet at the same time, I'm grateful for being able to kind of catch up on all the other areas of my life that I don't get to focus on properly when he's on my watch.
Yes.
So I would just imagine for somebody who's doing this all by themselves, you need such a strong support network around you. Do you think that's absolutely crucial in terms of the people that you have around you?
I think it's definitely worth trying to set that up right from the start, and kind of checking that you are going to have some support, whether that's, for some people that might be that they have a nanny, or something else. If they don't, not everyone's lucky enough to have family, or friends around. But I think some sort of, you need that fallback for if you're unwell and you literally physically can't look after your child very much. It's good to have someone who you can call on, and I think that does make things feel a lot more secure.
Yeah, and in terms of making decisions for, Astrid, like, I read a bit in the book about what nursery she's going to go to and things, sharing the load of those decisions and even the emotional stuff. Do you have a certain person or certain people that you can turn to kind of sanity check things or bounce things off or just have a cry if it's getting too much? I noticed it with the nursery decision. We moved to Hove quite recently, and she's changed from her childminder, who I absolutely loved, to being at a nursery. And I found that so hard. I looked around various nurseries. I took my mum round one. I got in touch with various friends and asked them. And so, there are people who get kind of slightly random WhatsApps going, so I'm wondering about X or Y. Yeah.
I guess I do do ask people their opinions on things like that, because they feel like such big decisions.
Yeah.
And they affect her day to day, and so they are big. But I also think I've learned to rely on my instincts a lot more.
Yeah.
Certainly when I was very first a parent, and you're just learning how to be a mum and learning to look after a newborn, and actually our instincts are generally so good.
Yeah.
You're so in touch with your child that yeah, if you're worried about them, often that is something it's worth getting checked out.
Absolutely. And I think, for anyone in any kind of experience of motherhood, whether it's single parenting or not, that's such an important thing to focus on your own intuition, because otherwise you're just going to hear 50 million different things from 50 million different people and question everything and be completely confused. So, I think that's good, solid advice.
And there's definitely some upsides as well, like in terms of that. I remember a friend, and I think I do mention it in the book, and them talking about, I think it was like a decision over, I can't remember whether it was like cutlery or what to first wean their child on and those sorts of things. And I think constantly checking with someone, amazing to have someone who's that invested, but also those kind of, you don't realise that you're making all these micro decisions on behalf of your child all the time, especially, in that first, when they're kind of one, and my daughter's now 2 and she has a fairly strong opinion about what she's going to wear and things like that. But a year ago, I was making a lot of those decisions for her. And I think there's a hardness of like constantly checking and kind of almost doubting yourself, because you're not going, oh, okay, we'll go for peas first, or whatever it is that day. And I think that can add an extra level almost of stress to parenting. When probably at the end of the day all results are equal. In that moment it might feel like a huge thing whether they have peas or broccoli first in their diet, but overall that's unlikely to affect their taste as they grow up.
Yeah, for sure. And for anyone who might be considering going down this route, or has had the thought, what are the steps that, how does it work once you have the idea and you think, okay, I think I'm going to look into this? What do you do? How do you go about it?
So I went to a fertility clinic first to find out about my fertility levels. I also went to my NHS doctor, who gave me the tests that they were allowed to give, because I wasn't in a couple who'd been trying to have a child for a certain amount of time. There weren't a full range of tests that could be given to me, but she said that personally she was very supportive. So she gave, I think maybe it was 1 or 2 blood tests. And then I went to the fertility clinic, who did the full range and did a scan. And they checked my AMH levels, which is the anti-Mullerian hormone, which sort of suggests your ovarian reserve.
Okay.
From that, they recommended a sperm bank to me. And I then picked the donor sperm that I was going to use.
And how do you pick? Do they give a background of the donor, and how much detail do they go into?
So part of it depends where the sperm comes from.
Okay.
All the sperm worldwide has to be, if any procedure, any fertility treatment's being done in the UK, it has to follow the HFEA guidelines. But if you're getting sperm from abroad, sometimes you get a lot more detail.
Okay.
I could see photos of the donors as babies and as adults, lots of health details, lots of kind of character profiling and letters that they'd written, just to give some background on themselves that then parents can pass on to their child, so that they can really understand a little bit more about their genetics.
That's
really
great. I didn't realise that happens. That's so good for the child, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, for me, I think the most important thing is the ruling changed in 2005. So you have there's no anonymity now.
Okay.
So when a child is 18, they can get in touch with that donor.
Yeah.
And they're not going to swoop in as some kind of belated dad figure.
Yeah.
But just to kind of understand where you came from.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people conceived by donor, that's actually really nice. It's just like a piece of a jigsaw that you put into place. And I think that can be really just give a bit of context. And I think it's really good that in this country we changed that law.
Yeah, for sure. And are you able to contact the donor, or is it just Astrid and her little brother? Because it's the same donor,
yes,
isn't it?
It's the same donor, yes, which I think is great, because then they can share that experience together.
So lovely, yeah.
But absolutely, it's that's their decision. If they're curious, I will do everything to kind of help that happen. Yeah. If they're not, I will never find out. It's totally not not me who is the one in control of that. And I think that's absolutely right. It's not about me. That's their thing. And I feel like there are quite a lot of details, but it's just not something for me to show curiosity about. It's totally their story. Yeah. And I'm part. It feels like our family story. Yeah. But it's their decision. Yeah. When they're adults. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would imagine that, like you say, it is really nice that they will be in that together as well as brother and sister.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think, and just there's things that you. I mean, I know from when I was a teenager, there's things you don't really want to chat about to your mum. Yeah. I always want to be so open. I already talked to Astrid about it. It's never going to be a surprise to her. I will be always there for any questions, and it's I think it's really important that she knows that. But at the same time, there are things that maybe she won't want to talk about with me, and I think that's why it's important she has role models who aren't, like male and female role models outside our family, who we've, chosen and made into family, but also that, hopefully that will be lovely that she can talk to her brother who's in exactly the same situation.
Yeah, and part of the reason why I want to create Frollo is so that my son Billy can experience other family dynamics that aren't just, the stereotype, the traditional family as we've kind of seen it, the mom and the dad and I want him to see that there are lots of people in all different types of families, different shapes and sizes, and to really understand that this is normal, this is good, this is great, and to experience that through the Frollo community. And I'm just wondering, do you have a solo moms by choice community that you can tap into, or does Astrid know any other little kids who are the same age as her who have the same setup?
Yeah, there's quite an active community, which is great. People get together. There's also kind of closed, really hidden groups on social media where people are in touch with each other. By chance, when I did my pregnancy yoga, there were two mums there who were also pregnant by donors. Wow. Which did make me think that pregnancy yoga is therefore a really self-selecting crowd who are going along. Yeah. And we've just moved to Hove, and one of the reasons I picked Sussex was that it's such a liberal community. I think it's wonderful, very similarly to you, the idea that Astrid will go to a school where it's unlikely that everyone will be mum and dad. There'll be maybe some families with two mums, two dads, one mum, one dad, just that whole mix. And I think, like you, it's brings a real richness to life. And I think that's a really lovely thing. Yeah. But the solo mum community is a really supportive one. And I'm really pleased to have discovered it. Yeah.
Great. Well, and just to keep you in the loop, when the Frollo app launches in September, there will be a part for there'll be a way that you can find other solo moms by choice within the app as well. So
that's
it'll be really
great.
easy to connect and organise meetups and events and all of that as well.
Oh, what a good idea.
Yeah. And in terms of financially, like, you know, how does all of that work? Is it super expensive to go down this route? Do you get any support from the government? Are there any, what do people need to know in terms of money and finances going down this route?
I think historically it has been something that involved quite a bit of savings. I'm very lucky that I had savings to do it. I do know of quite a few solo mums who've used credit cards and things like that. I think if you're in a position where you can't get credit, then that probably does start getting tricky. There are, I mean, even to the point that there are people who donate sperm free just because they want to do that.
Yeah.
I went through a much more kind of traditional, if you can call it that, way of sperm donation. So went to an official sperm bank, where you do pay for the sperm, and it was maybe about £700-800 for a vial of sperm.
Okay.
So that's it's a significant amount.
And does it, just in with regards to that, does it usually take one go or more goes, or is there any kind of guidance around?
It totally depends. I mean, Astrid was conceived with artificial insemination, which is a lot less intrusive than IVF.
Okay.
And is kind of a step up from a turkey baster, basically.
Right.
So my cycle was monitored, and then sperm was inseminated.
Okay.
That is not a particularly expensive procedure. It's about £1,000. So compared to IVF, it's a lot less. Then my son, artificial insemination wasn't working, and I did move on to IVF to conceive him. That's more expensive. That was more in the region of maybe £5,000. So, you know, again, a really significant amount of money. I felt that for me, I don't qualify for NHS help, but I looked at the NICE guidelines, and were I in a partnership, and it was my first child, the recommended amount is 3 rounds of IVF.
Okay.
And that's what they give to people on the NHS. And if it doesn't work after that, I think they say that your success isn't that likely. So that was what, I mean, I think there'd have had to be pauses while I saved up again.
Yeah.
But I kind of thought, well, I'll give it that recommended amount of tries. Yeah. And that seemed like a good way of doing it. But in terms of support for solo mums, there's not. I mean, I even thought at one point, like, well, I could just pretend I'm in a lesbian couple. Yeah. Because how would anyone know? Yeah. And then all of a sudden I'd qualify. But I think I'm a terrible liar, and I was really worried that they'd go, well, why doesn't your partner do it? And we'd end up in a complete mess.
And you'd have to find someone.
Oh my gosh! You know, getting
hands.
A friend to kind of pose. Yeah. Suddenly couldn't have done it with someone straight, because then it would be like, well, why am I with a male friend? Because then you'd question why on earth they weren't offering their own sperm. Yeah. So the whole thing was just a complete. It was too impractical. But there is a difference between couples.
And on that note, it's there's been, I read, a 35% increase, is it, in single moms by choice in the last few years?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And I guess that's likely to continue.
Absolutely.
I think there'll be more figures coming out in the next month or so. Okay. And I would expect that would continue. And that's just the figures of people who have treatment in the UK. Yeah. You get a lot of people who go abroad. There's countries, I'm trying to think, I'm not quite sure, but some European countries, I think it's Spain, about half the price.
Yeah. Well, I know that I think there's a well-known clinic in Spain. I think somebody I know went there. But and just even for me, just in terms of people I know personally, there's a handful of people and growing who have gone down that route.
I think that's it, as it becomes more talked about.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing, it just makes people know that there is a choice.
Yeah.
And it might not be the right thing for them at all, but I think it's really great that women, often in their 30s, who are aware of declining fertility, don't start feeling like they're being slightly backed into a corner with no choices.
Absolutely.
And just knowing that there is that alternative, I think means that then I think it gives a really good backup. If children are important to you, it means you're unlikely to make a mistake that maybe you will regret. Because it doesn't stop you having children without a partner.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so great that you're speaking so openly about it and that you've written your book, because it is opening up the conversation and hopefully giving people the kind of reassurance and confidence that they might need to just, look into it a bit more, or to go down that route, because we are living in a world where people are not, it's not realistic for everybody to find the person of their dreams, by a certain age and then have the family. It's just not the way life works, unfortunately. But so I think, and why should we just sit back and keep our fingers crossed until and hope that one day our lives will be made complete by another person walking into our lives. So
I really hope so. And I think that's the thing. It might not have been the route that my teenage self thought I was going to follow, but I absolutely wouldn't change it for the world. Astrid is an absolute joy in my life. And if I hadn't followed this route, she wouldn't be there. Yeah. And there's no way I would change that, not for anything. I mean, it's the biggest decision I've ever made, but it's certainly the best decision I've ever made as well. So I do feel really, really lucky.
That's lovely. Yeah. And so another thing I have to ask you about is dating. How does dating fit into this whole picture, and how have you had the time or energy to even think about dating since Astrid has been born, or what are your kind of views on it right now?
Well, I'm 37 weeks pregnant at the moment, so if someone showed interest right at this moment, I'd probably suspect them of having a slightly odd fetish. Yeah. So I'm not dating right now, but I did go on a few dates a while ago before I got pregnant. I think. And nothing actually went anywhere. But I feel like it's going to be quite a good filter, in all honesty.
Absolutely.
I think I will always want someone, if, I wouldn't introduce someone immediately to my daughter and my son in a few weeks. But wow, they're going to have to be a great person for me to consider them. And I think that's a really, really good thing. Yeah. I'm still really open to dating, and I'm sure it's something that I will do. I'd love a relationship sometime down the line, but I think it's a great filter. And I also think that it's sort of flattering to them, because I would want to be with them just for them, you know? I suspect that a few years ago, without me even realising it, there'd have been a little bit of me that didn't just want to be with them for them, but also really wanted a family.
Sure.
So in that way, I think it's going to be, I suspect it'll work well.
Yeah, I love that. And I love your... a really good filter, your idea of that. That's how I feel about dating as well now. And it's kind of, I am way fussier than I used to be, not the other way around. I'm not like, I hope someone takes me because I'm a single mom. It's more like, no, if I'm going to let you into my life, it means that you're someone pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that obviously you're a certain type of person. You're, a strong kind of determined, capable, amazing woman. So you need a man to match that. So, you've got 2 kids you've brought into this world yourself. So it's, that's what better filter. You're, just cut out the kind of guys who can't sort of live up to what you need, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then finally, I just wanted to ask you about the best things about being doing it this way and being a solo mom by choice, and on the flip side, the most challenging things.
So the most challenging things, I guess, I find when Astrid's ill, I find that really hard. I mean, not so much now, but when she was a bit younger, I just remember measuring out hours because of Calpol doses and her temperature going sky high and trying to call that moment when you'd go to A&E. And I found that really hard. It would have been lovely to have some emotional reassurance in those moments of someone just saying you're doing a good job, or helping me make that call of like, okay, now's the time to react. I think I feel really lucky that there's so many people in my life who do share the special moments with Astrid. Like, I mean, even tiny stuff. She calls a duvet a snuggle, and I find it the most charming thing in the entire world. That kind of thing. Those little snippets that I love to share those. They're what make her her. And I feel really pleased that there are lots of people around who will share those. But I imagine that if there was someone who loved her as much as I did, for them that would make their world go round too. So those are kind of the hard moments, the very tough things, but also those kind of amazing, beautiful when you feel your heart burst with love and you're like, oh. And I'm so lucky that there are people who want to share those with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, perhaps that would be easier with a partner. In terms of the best things, I mean, every day is utterly, there's not a day that goes by where I don't feel really, really lucky, especially as she's growing and changing and becoming such a character. I just love seeing her outlook on life. Like the way she sings to herself is just, it's fantastic. It really is. I think there was also a simplicity that I hadn't expected of just trying to keep that relationship certainly when she was very, very young, but sometimes even now, I concentrate on her. She's my focus. That's really very straightforward. When I got out of hospital, we spent the first couple of months just gazing at each other, feeding, sleeping. I was able to nap whenever she napped. The housework kind of piled up around, but I wasn't trying to look attractive, which I know that a partner wouldn't expect, but which I perhaps would have imposed on myself because I'd have thought, might have sex with them later down the line. I wasn't trying to put on any act whatsoever, and it was a really beautiful, magical time. And I know that's a really beautiful, magical time for many, many couples too. But I hadn't realised just quite how wonderful that would be in its simplicity. And I think there are things like that happen quite regularly. It's not managing lots of different relationships. When I have my son as well, that's bringing the extra relationship in. But it's quite straightforward being able to make decisions. And there are some that would be wonderful to kind of have someone else co-making them. But certainly a friend who's in a couple said, don't underestimate how hard it is when you don't know until you have a child what different views on bringing them up you're likely to have. And that's not something that you're going to kind of sit around and chat about when you're dating someone. And that actually there's an awful lot of compromise that goes on. There are some real pluses. I feel like I just feel so lucky, really, that it worked out, because I know that some people have real problems with fertility treatment and it can be a really long and tough process. So I was incredibly fortunate.
Genevieve, this has been such a lovely chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
I think, it's really eye-opening actually. And I think so much of what you said is informative, but then kind of will probably be very helpful and reassuring to a lot of people who are kind of considering this as an option. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
The best of luck.
Thank you.
With Astrid's little brother, and I hope it all goes really well. I hope you get a little bit of downtime, because I know you're doing a lot of book promotion at the moment.
I'm definitely going to be spending a little bit of time on the sofa coming up. Good. And just resting.
Okay,
yes.
Well, enjoy, and the best of luck with everything. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, Genevieve, you are on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle?
Good question. It's my name.
Genevieve Roberts.
Yes. There might be an underscore, I'm not quite sure.
Okay, look for Genevieve Roberts on Instagram, and the book is called Going Solo, My Choice to Become a Single Mother Using a Donor. And you can find Frollo on Instagram at Frollo_app. And if you want to sign up for the waitlist of the app, go to www.frollo.co.uk, and I will be back next month with the next podcast. Thank you for listening.